Hello, welcome back to the Link Show with Level 1 Techs. I'm Krista. You guys can say your names. We
No.
never say our names. I thought about that the other day. I was like, I'm in control of that situation.
I'm Leopold.
I'm covered in cat hair.
I live that. I don't think I'm ever not going to be covered in cat
Yeah.
hair. That's just something you accept. when you
We
get
just
cats.
washed our blankets and like even just taking them out of the dryer, cat hair.
And that lint trap,
Yeah.
that's just a horror show. But yeah, it doesn't get, I don't know how you would ever get all the, they need to, I don't know how you do it, but a product that would actually like just put clothes in, get clothes without cat hair out, that'd be a huge seller.
Yeah, I
but
just don't think it's ever going to happen.
it's just, I would hate to see the amount of cat hair that I consume.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, we don't have any links to share with you about cat hair. That's for your own discovery. What we have is some links to share with you about the government.
Insecurity.
Where's that?
And Devember. Don't forget about Devember. It's happening now on the forum. Get your development project started for December. And then we're going to give away a whole bunch of stuff in January. Probably going to run a little long this year to the end of January. But,
Yeah.
you got 2 months, basically.
That's some pretty good prizes in the past. Last year, of course, the video card prizes were hotly contested.
Yeah.
But we did have a really human moment where somebody lost a video card due to their 24-hour Minecrafting.
Yeah.
And the community pitched in and was like, let's give them the video card.
And that worked out
It was
pretty
really
good,
sweet. Yeah.
That was like a Lifetime original, but with Minecraft. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with this either. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the FTC. And the FTC, the narrative is that they're sort of like supercharged. It's like, yeah, now we got pies out, or not pie, but the old people are out of here, pies out of the FCC. These two situations are going to be very antitrust, or well, anti-antitrust, anti-merger. They're kind of playing it up. They're showing some real potential here.
Ticketmaster's botching of Taylor Swift's ticket sales, quote unquote, converted more Gen Zers into anti-monopolists overnight than anything I could have done, the FTC chair says. It's Miss Lena Khan. We refer to her a lot in, some of the mobilization stuff because it's like the ISPs are coming under fire, blah, blah, blah. But hey, if Gen Z's paying attention now, look around. It's sort of horrific. If you could channel that horror into something
Not just Taylor Swift. Yeah.
they haven't yet realized that the horror doesn't really go anywhere. Like it's like, oh, let's channel this into change. And it's like, there are people being paid a lot of money to
I think Gen Z
neutralize.
realizes more than maybe you think.
I don't know, because this is nothing new.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
the merger between Live Nation and Ticketmaster to put them in charge of the buildings and the ticket sales is kind of new. But Pearl Jam went through this. I can't remember when. It was like was it in the early 2000s, the 90s when they tried that?
Yeah.
And now I'm sure that Pearl Jam doesn't have the reach that Miss Swift does. But this is something that's been, people have been screaming about this for a long time. Will this be enough momentum? I kind of doubt it.
We
unfortunately.
have so much corruption even in like public utilities. It's like we have had the money to replace lead-based pipes for some time. We're not exactly a third world nation, and yet we haven't replaced our lead-based pipes pretty much anywhere. We can't even agree that trans fats are bad as individual states.
No, we did agree with that. That was in 2015, we banned those.
Trans fats are not banned in a couple of states, are they? They're just banned at a federal level.
Oh, was that too? Oh. Well, how could you get away with? I'm not sure about that.
I'm not sure about that either. Maybe somebody will tell us.
Someone will inevitably correct that in the comments.
Well, of
But
course,
that took forever.
but we pivoted from trans fats to PUFAs.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
here we are.
If you're new here and you're like, what the hell is a PUFA? What, can you explain it? 'Cause some people have been like, I don't understand why he keeps referencing that.
A lot of people.
It's a food fad.
A lot of people in the Twitch chat confuse it with FUPA, which is much. You don't know what a FUPA is. Do you?
No.
Of course, Krista doesn't know what it is. The comments will tell you. But it is a polyunsaturated fatty acid, and all the official documentation will tell you need those. Those are the best thing ever. They come from like vegetable oil, just like trans fats.
And some people say it's really bad for you and can cause a lot of health problems.
Yeah. And aside from the health threatening thing, the level of lies and corruption that exists around incumbent ISPs in your area is just as rotten and terrible. Perhaps more so. And yet, here we are.
Nah, I think food has something up on ISPs.
Oh, I'm saying it's more important, but the level of corruption and hucksterism and
No, I think food corruption is worse than
worse.
ISP corruption. I think it's like energy, food, ISP is kind of actually further down on the list, I would say. I mean, it's big to us. I don't think a lot of people care as much about it as we do.
Yeah.
Everyone has to eat. Start growing your own food. Resistance is fertile.
Where did you get that?
I saw that on a meme.
Make
A gardening meme.
You gotta make a t-shirt. But some corruption does get punished when it is not government mandated.
Former Theranos COO Sunny Balwani has been sentenced to nearly 13 years in prison. This comes after Elizabeth Holmes' sentencing, which was 11 years. He had a lot more charges against him. I'm very surprised that their sentences are similar.
She painted him as the kingpin. I don't know if I buy that.
I don't know.
You know, as much as was touted about her intelligence and her ability to go as far as she did, when she dropped out, but she went to what, like Stanford or Yale or something. I don't think you'd be that dumb and accomplish that. Maybe higher education is more of a con than we thought. But
Engagement
maybe
challenge.
it's more about your money and who you know, right?
did she come from money?
I'm not sure. Probably.
know
If you're
her
going
history.
to Yale or Stanford.
And this is a little blast from the past. Remember Jedi? We had the big cloud contract and Amazon didn't get it. And oh boy,
Everyone started slap fighting.
there was a tantrum. And Jeff Bezos said, I didn't get this because Trump doesn't like me, because the Washington Post and blah, blah, blah. They actually scrapped it and started over. Now we know the ending.
Pentagon has split a $9 billion cloud contract award among 4 companies: Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Oracle.
Do you feel like I read this and I was like, this is not going to end well.
It's going to introduce so many more connections that can fail.
Yeah.
Redundancy that we don't need.
People arguing in email, like,
Leaks.
yeah.
Opportunities for Chinese spies to be employed at one of those 4 companies.
I guess that's the one good thing about it. Beijing will have to spend 4 times the resources.
They saw this article and they're like,
Put out some hiring notices. And now is the time of year when we look at our past budgets and we say, how much money do we need next year to keep this
all of it.
horrible ball rolling? And it turns out almost every year the answer is more.
U.S. House overwhelmingly approves a bill backing record military spending. It was actually $45 billion above the recommendation, but when the budget is this large, $45 billion is basically a rounding error.
That's like when you're buying a car and it's like, well, $2,000 doesn't seem that much tacked on to what I'm already paying. Yeah, let's get the rust proofing. And we heard about South Dakota last week. This is becoming a little bit of a bandwagon topic.
Texas becomes the latest state to ban TikTok on government devices.
Pretty much the same as South Dakota did. And there's actually other states that have already done it before then. One of the Carolinas, I think. Yeah, we go. South Dakota, South Carolina, Maryland.
I'm surprised it's not more. Maybe that's coming, I guess, but
I can't see a big part, like who's going to push against that? Because your government employees will be like, I want to use TikTok at work. You know, it's a hard argument to make. Apple has made a big announcement. Actually, we talked about it last week. They sort of announced it, but it is happening now. And the FBI has to get in there and chastise them for it because they do not care for freedoms.
FBI calls end-to-end encryption, quote unquote, deeply concerning, and privacy groups hail Apple's advanced data protection victory as a victory for users. So your iCloud backups still remain unencrypted, however.
And another follow-up, which this is a flip-flop. First, they weren't going to do it. And then they voted and they're like, we're going to let it happen. And then immediately the backlash was overwhelming.
8-3. 8 people voted. They're like, yeah, let's do this.
No, it was the other way.
Was it the other way?
They're now saying no to it.
Okay. Never mind. Read the headline.
San Francisco halts its killer robots police policy after a huge backlash. For now.
I thought the initial vote was 8 people voted for it.
Oh, they might have mirrored afterwards.
Yeah.
That might be true. But yeah, they said yes to it. And then there was a period of public concern where you can call them up and be like, listen, this is bad. And it was so overwhelming that
that's when they backtracked.
I think that was when it was 8-3 against.
Who thinks that's a good idea? Who's like, yes, I want that. My name attached to that in the press.
Yeah, well, but at the same time, you got to say to yourself, I need police union votes. So for now, the angry calls win. which I guess tells you make angry calls constantly.
Maybe we can, use Chat GPT to automate that system somehow.
You would get arrested so fast. But, like that definitely violates that would be the one robocall they go after.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that though. The AI that contests speeding tickets and traffic tickets, parking tickets, that sort of thing. They're working on a browser plugin to negotiate. You know how if you go to your cable provider or your cell phone provider when your contract is up and it's like, I'm thinking about switching, blah, blah, and then all of a sudden they magically offer you a lower rate. It's an AI that does that through the online chat tools. So all these companies have outsourced their call center. Now it's going to be a CAPTCHA. It's like, prove you're a human being. And it's like, okay. And then you let the robot in there to negotiate with them to get a lower price. It's like truly the darkest timeline.
Just robots negotiating with robots.
Yeah.
What they'll do is they'll add like every 5 minutes, we have to prompt you for security to confirm your identity.
To confirm you're a real person.
And if you automate that, then you're giving personal information to a computer and that's not allowed. We're going to report you for that. They'll get around that. And they'll get around this in the terms of you don't have to do this. This is optional. It's the kind of optional where if you say no to it, you're going to be in a little room, probably naked for several hours while someone goes through everything that you own, but it is optional.
So TSA now wants to scan your face as security. Here are your rights. Yeah, I mean, you can do airline travel without TSA pre-check, but
Well, they say that they want to scan your face, but they're like, you can tell them no, and then they'll just search you normally. And so the person who wrote the article was like, I asked the guy I was interviewing, like, will you be punished for that? And he's like, no, but you can talk to a manager if you feel like you are being punished. And I was like, who has that kind of time at an airport?
But I guarantee you there's been daily, there are probably 10,000 people who say to a TSA agent, I want to talk to your manager. Yeah. And maybe like 1% of them actually get to see a manager.
Yeah.
Most of the time you have like that video outrage on Twitter, like, look what happened. And then there's just all this video evidence. They're like, okay, fine, we'll deal with it.
Now that you've made a big enough stink to enough people that they can see what's happening, then we'll do something.
Which we, story after story, like the big corporations have that where you can't get in contact with anybody until you tweet somebody famous and they amplify it. Yeah. And then YouTube's like, oh, did we do that? Well, unfortunately, I think going forward, we're going to need a lot more soldiers. I hope we don't.
It's looking that way, isn't it?
I really hope we don't, but it just seems like we might. And the U.S. Army seems to agree with me because they are looking at some unique recruiting tools.
The U.S. Army planned to pay streamers millions to reach Gen Z through Call of Duty. All you need to do to get the enrollment numbers is to get the enrollment numbers up is to create a really terrible economic situation where everybody has a lot of debt and no one has any job except for the military.
I'd kill to get my student loans paid for. You will?
But then who do you farm all those billions from to get that budget every year?
I think you just print more.
Well, I mean, we're at the end of that. We're seeing where that ends. This is the final stage of that, I fear.
You hope that somewhere else gets destroyed so that way your economy gets a leg up over everyone else.
Now, they ended up not doing this, but it was because of another outrage that people had. What was it that... something that Microsoft or Activision did.
At this point, who can keep track? There's so many.
And they did the public thing where like, we're not going to associate with you anymore. So that's the only reason they didn't do this. I imagine when that settles down, which it probably already has, this is probably back in the works, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There used to be ads all over Twitch for the military, like the auto pre-roll ad. Mm-hmm. I used to see those a lot.
Those are probably still there. But this was more
targeted,
like direct influencer.
Yeah.
If you're watching a Call of Duty streamer and they're always talking about like, hoo-ah and, telling you how great a time they had in Germany when they were stationed there, be suspicious.
Yeah.
Be very suspicious. And we got some, again, the budgets are rolling out and we are doing an anti-China budget this year.
U.S. to spend $1.5 billion to jumpstart alternatives to Huawei. I'll take what would have been good in 2003 for 500, Alex.
Are you telling me outsourcing everything to China has backfired on us dramatically?
So I don't know if it was this article, but we were doing, oh yeah, the ORAN, the open source version of whatever network equipment we were replacing from Huawei and all the others. And that sounds good on the surface. I don't know too much about it. Have you ever heard of that?
No. I wonder if there's any business opportunity for us here. It's like, oh, look, we can just put all these things together and it'll be fine. But I'd say a lot of that money is going to go to incumbent companies that won't accomplish anything. Most of that company should go to startups and entrepreneurial types because they're the ones that'll get it done. If Cisco gets half or 3/4 of that, it's just going to
Disappear.
Yeah, I mean, it's just nothing will change.
That's the situation we've been in for all of history. Well, I just got my license renewed this year, and they were like, hey, did you bring in a mountain of documents? And I was like, no, I got my old license right here. There it is. It's got my picture on it. And they're like, oh, we can't give you a real ID. We're going to have to give you just a Kentucky ID. And then you have to bring all these documents back to us and pay us another $40. Then we'll get you the real ID. Until that date, you cannot enter a federal building or a plane. So I was like, all right, whatever. And good news for me.
Real ID deadline for air travel extended another 2 years, but probably not admission to a federal building.
I remember when we went on our honeymoon in 2019, like we were concerned that we wouldn't be able to get on a plane without these. And yet again, it just keeps getting pushed back.
Because no one wants these.
He explained a lot to me, and I was like, I don't know where my birth certificate is. What do I do if I don't have a birth certificate? He's like, well, you can go to such and such address in Frankfurt, and they will give you another one. And I was like, is that a federal building? Like he just dead stared at me. Didn't answer my question, just sat there and stared at me. I don't know if he didn't get it or if he was just dead inside because he's a DMV worker. I missorted this one. This was supposed to go with the other FTC story. And like I say, they're making a big show of this. I hope they follow through.
Twin complaints signal new FTC strategy to rein in the tech industry. Lawsuits to block Microsoft's Activision acquisition and opening arguments on trial over Facebook's deal to buy Within mark most aggressive actions against big tech under Lena Khan. So the Within thing was kind of flying under the radar. It's like, oh, the metaverse, blah, blah, blah. I think that Mark Zuckerberg is on an exit trajectory from Meta. And I think that Within would have been one of those exit trajectories where the shareholders just say, okay, we're going to continue Meta as Meta. Mark, why don't you just become the owner, CEO, chief czar of Within, and that be its own thing and blah, blah, blah. So this actually could be a really good thing for shareholders. Like shareholders can look at Mark and say, okay, why don't you take the metaverse team and just go over to Within and we'll give you some money for that. But get out of Meta.
But the big story is Microsoft, right? Because Microsoft has been making concession after concession. Oh, yeah. They now added Nintendo.
We got that story in the business section.
So they're like, we'll do whatever you want, but...
Please let us gobble up Activision.
But Lena Khan, you think that Microsoft CEO was like, God?
Yeah.
I don't think Microsoft and Activision can compete now that we've got indie developers that are producing such gems on Steam as Dwarf Fortress.
Do you think Microsoft at all is kind of like, I don't know if I want Activision anymore?
You say developers, plural. Nobody else is developing anything like Dwarf Fortress.
It's just those two guys, though.
I think it's basically like one guy and the other guy.
Yeah, the other handles their like everyday life.
A more high-functioning Temple OS, if you will.
Except useful. I mean, it gives us something. Right? And, I did sort FTC, but I let one get away. Right. So FTC is also looking into this issue where for a while there, anybody who was anybody was taking money to encourage you to get out there with crypto. As Matt Damon said, fortune favors the bold. Spoiler alert, Fortuna did not favor the bold on that day.
FTC probes possible misconduct in cryptocurrency advertising.
They should just remove cryptocurrency and just put advertising.
So they got a list of names down here somewhere. It's some heavy hitters. Kardashian obviously was in there.
Oh, they'll take money from anything.
Justin Bieber, well, he needed the money. Jimmy Fallon, Madonna, Eminem, Gwyneth Paltrow, Tom Brady, Paris Hilton, Snoop Dogg, Bored 8 Yacht Club. That's not a celebrity. World of Women. What is World of Women?
Don't look at me.
An Autograph. I don't know what Autograph is. Oh, those are the collections. I'm sorry. Okay. Bored 8 Yacht Club, World of Women, and Autograph were the collections of NFTs. But yeah.
Did you see that FTX's NFT server went offline? And so like all the NFTs that were on there are just redirecting to, we're restructuring.
So you're saying those NFTs went from being worthless to being worthless?
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Bankman-Fried is still in the hot seat, although he, for some reason, isn't being arrested.
I've also wondered about
I
that.
can't figure out why that's not happening, but he also will not be subpoenaed. Maxine Waters just said that they won't subpoena him. Why wouldn't they do that? But he is a benevolent god of crypto, so he will do it on his own.
Sam Bankman-Fried says he will testify before Congress on FTX collapse. Just as soon as he's got some details. He just needs to get some details.
But he's giving interviews left, right, and center.
Right, he's giving out a lot of details too. But that he thinks it's going to probably take a little longer than the 13th, which will be the day that you're watching this, to get those details, which is when the testimony will happen. So he's probably not going to be there.
I am 100% certain that his lawyer is not vetting anything that he says.
His lawyer probably has a gun in his mouth right now. Because you know he's told him,
Stop talking to the press.
do not,
Stop talking
just
to the
stop
press.
talking.
Yeah.
Just go mute for the next 3 months. Go to your mansion and sit there quietly.
Just eat some saltines and stare at the wall.
But here's a crazy idea. Stop taking Adderall.
Have some Doritos, do the do, and just don't think about it.
No caffeine.
You start trembling. You want to call a press member.
How
and
about a
start talking.
chamomile tea?
Not even a caffeine tea. Wow. Not like black tea.
No. Because then you might get chatty. And government oversight. That's a wonderful thing when we have it, right? Except they don't like it. And even when it seems like it's a huge thing that no one person could ever really encompass because the volume is just so great, we mustn't look too deeply.
Ukraine aid audit bill has been voted down by a Democrat-led panel, narrowly, of course. But it's like, hey, we should audit and keep track of where all the money is going and how this is it actually making it to where it needs to go? And it's like, no, we're not going to do that.
What else was in it? Was it just an audit?
I think so, yeah. Because that would be a bloodbath. And here's a crazy precedent. I guess this probably happened before in the courts. I didn't even know this was an option, but I like it.
Judge orders U.S. lawyer in Russian botnet case to pay Google. Some documents emerged where it seemed like the lawyer was helping his clients conduct extortion on Google during the case. The judge did not take kindly to that. And so the lawyer just went ahead and filed the appeal. We'll see how that works out for him.
But they also countersued, and during the meetings to try and settle it, they were like, well, if you just pay us, we're pretty sure the botnet will go away, and so will we. And Google was like, nah, bro, you just screwed yourself. And in fact, I think they have.
Yeah.
So because these guys are Russian and they're not going to be able to pay, the judges said the lawyer will pay the legal fees.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's tough. And we've heard a lot of misappropriation for this kind of thing, but it's really sad that we literally just like outsourced our own hacking. Like, hey, here's some money. Could you hack us later? That's basically what happened here.
Chinese hackers stole millions worth of relief money for the thing, the Secret Service says. So, just spin up a fake business and make some fake records and submit a thing. It's like, oh, look, free money.
I bet this is why they don't want that Ukraine audit. Because this is not the first story about that. That's been an overwhelming amount of fraud there. And North Carolina, when it comes to, like this, is this a tech story? But there is one fundamental truth for almost all modern technology. We got to have electricity.
Yeah.
And the infrastructure, it's a little dicey. Maybe a little more dicey than you thought it was.
Tens of thousands still in the dark after targeted quote-unquote attacks on North Carolina power stations.
They still haven't caught anyone or found a motive, at least that I've seen.
Now, what's disturbing about this is I'm pretty sure in the 60s and 70s and 80s, because of the Cold War and because of the tensions leading up to the Cold War, we spent a lot of effort on making sure our electrical grid was redundant. And now you mean to tell me that, some hooligans can just shoot up a couple transformers and that's a big deal to fix?
This happened in 2013 in California as well. They never caught the person who did that either.
It's going to be more cameras.
There's already cameras on it though, and they've checked them and they haven't found anybody.
They're going to give Homeland Security the space around power stations the same way they give them the border and airports. So we're going to have a like limited rights zone around all power substations.
What if I wanted to hang out there the most?
Not allowed. If you live next to it, sorry. We'll search your house anytime we want. I'm speculating, man. It's not actually happening. And Amazon, I guess they got tired of weekly payments and they tried to negotiate a one-time payment for this thing that's never going to stop happening.
Amazon reportedly reaches deal with EU regulators over anti-competitive practices. Now, I tried to figure out exactly what they agreed to. The terms are real nebulous. It's just...
Yeah, I don't think they gave a lot of details.
It was literally, seemed to be just, we're going to put products that compete with our Amazon Basics products higher up in search results and in related products boxes.
Well, they're also going to pay a bunch of money. So
Unrelated, that site had a marquee at the top, and all it said was White House press secretary having a press meeting. And it's like, about? Are we talking about the White House Christmas trees, or like, is it something important?
I imagine that's an unscheduled one. It might be that they're just like waiting for her to come to the podium and nobody knows yet. Oh. Although it's maybe not start the marquee yet, huh?
Yeah.
Although maybe people want to watch.
And know ahead of time, I guess. It is. What if it is just about the White House Christmas tree? Everyone gets all excited and it's just...
Is the White House allowed to have a Christmas tree?
Oh yeah, they decorate every year. Did you not see Melania Trump's last like Christmas decor?
Well, I could see Trump doing it, but it's not very inclusive.
No, but I mean, like, they always do like a big thing. They also did like a big display about the Smokies this year. It's like you don't even follow the Smokies on Twitter.
The Smokies? Wait, what's the Smokies got to do with...
Because it's like a national park, so they did like a display about the national parks, and the Smokies were featured in it.
But do they choose a different national park every year?
I guess, I don't know.
Seems like favoritism. Well, speaking of favoritism, the EU has chosen a favorite charging cable.
The EU sets December 28th, 2024 deadline for all new phones to use USB-C for wired charging. Okay.
Shouldn't be hard to nail that out the next couple of years.
They'll probably still scream tooth and nail to do it, but...
And the EU is also cracking down on crypto. Of course, the big crypto devastation is a good excuse to get more power.
EU to make crypto companies report tax details to the authorities. Okay.
We already have that.
Yeah.
It sucks.
And now also $600.
Another thing the EU will be getting is a little bit more from the big fruit.
Apple expands self-service repair to iPhone and MacBook users in Europe. It's still kind of a pain, and you still have to get the kit, and it's amazing. It's the level of malicious compliance from Apple on this is just breathtaking. But hey, small victories. You just can't lose any of the outrage. We got to keep chipping away at it.
Also, TechCrunch, they have a bad take on this because they keep going back to it's like, now you're probably too dumb to do this.
Even though you're reading a tech website and have some interest, you're probably still too dumb to do it.
And see, that's so frustrating because, you know, like the LG G4, look up the teardowns of that kind of a phone. You could replace the camera module. You could replace the screen. You could replace the case, replace the battery, replace the logic module. You know, you don't have to be able to micro solder. You can just replace the components. And all of those are dramatically cheaper than the phone as a whole.
Also, if Apple really wants to make it so it just works, couldn't they make their phones in such a way that they're easy to repair as well?
Yeah. Yeah, or look at the iPhone 4 teardown that had the two pentalobe screws on the bottom. No glue, if I recall correctly. That wasn't terrible to repair either, assuming that you could get parts and you were, you know, kind of delicate with the tweezers.
I think what they mean when they say just works is what works for the accounting team. And this does not at all. Now I want to do the headline for this first, and then let's take a deep dive into the horrific offenses that they've listed, that these unimaginable things that these kids are doing.
Risky online behavior almost normalized, quote unquote, among young people.
I like the sub caption here where they call them cyber deviants.
I can't get to it.
There was a table though of like all the different things. Piracy was one.
Looking at pornography. Also, they have a silly idea about how many kids have looked at pornography. It's 100%. Trolling online. Some of their kids are trolling online. Can you imagine? Tracking online, which I guess they're talking about what Krista does.
I don't do it that often anymore.
And that often. And just a variety of things that probably most of us have done. I'm not saying we should, but to say that this is like criminal behavior, this is kind of like the legal but harmful.
How do I get cyber deviant? Can I put that in my resume?
You can put it on your Twitter profile.
Oh yeah,
We can sell shirts that say that.
cyber deviant, or you could put it as your forum tag.
Now, this one I feel is a little unfair because you get the horizon from when you learned it, right? Because I don't think I would do well with this. But if I had learned it in the last year, if I'd refreshed it in the last year, maybe. But this is a little bit skewed, I think.
MPs and their peers do worse than 10-year-olds in math and English sats.
So I'm not great at math. So I could see like not doing great on the math portion, but like you use English every day. You're right every day.
But I guess an argument in the other direction is that they're going up against the average. So even the dumb kids are outperforming them.
Uh-huh.
But like if I have to memorize a formula, I don't know Pythagoras theorem from out of the head. You?
Well, a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared.
Is that Pythagoras theorem?
Mm-hmm. I feel reasonably certain, but someone's gonna tell us we're wrong.
Good job. See, I wouldn't have known that. I would have to look it up because I haven't used it in 25 years.
I use basic math, but not calculating that stuff anymore.
I accidentally discovered the other version of that, which is like minus 2ab plus 2ab something, which is another formula. That's the only reason I remember. No. It was for triangles that don't fit into the Pythagorean theorem formula.
Mentally divergent triangles.
Yeah.
Cyber deviant.
Yeah. And then it was like, and then that leads into quadratic equations, and it's like, yes, the quadratic equation.
Vanuatu?
Vanuatu, I think.
Okay.
Because there's also there's I think another island that's like son of Vanuatu. Maybe I might be thinking of Krakatoa.
These are tiny islands off of New Zealand.
Yeah.
If you're not good at world geography, here's a crazy possibility: a country gets cyber attacked, and then there's an election, and we're not the election. I guess it happened previously, but there was the transfer of power. And the cyber attack happens to coincide with the transfer of power. And then the old people are just like, here's the keys. Nothing works. Sorry. What do you do?
Pacific Island nation of Vanuatu has been knocked offline for more than a month. I only know that pronunciation because that's how Richard Feynman pronounced it. Because he really liked going there because it was really hard for the people, because he was working at Los Alamos, and it was really hard for the feds to get a hold of him there.
I watched a video about Krakatoa, which was a massive eruption of a volcano in that region. And I think it was in this vicinity, maybe. I might be misremembering that.
Well, there's one thing that's not erupting, and that's their undersea cable. Actually, it's working fine. They've just been ransomwared or something. They didn't have any details. Nobody even knows what the hell's going on. But
what a weird nation to strike, too.
Well, they talk about that in here, that they believe a lot of the, the attackers, because the U.S. government has gotten so strict about it and has been extraditing. They're like, let's go for easier targets, softer targets. We also don't know if they've paid anything to try to be ransomed or anything. It's just nobody knows what's going on. They can't even use email in the government.
They're like, you hire someone and it's like, oh, do I have a company email? It's like, no.
And here's a little preview for central bank digital currencies. The question is, how are they ever going to make me use them? I won't use them. I'll just use cash. No, you won't.
Nigeria bans ATM cash withdrawals over $225 a week to force use of CBDC. That's the Canadian or the central bank digital currency.
It'd be crazy if Canada was issuing crypto in Nigeria.
It's like, I was like Canadian Bank, and I was like, wait,
no.
Central bank digital currency.
So they introduced their e-coin. No one uses it. They do have a fair amount of Bitcoin use though. So people are like, nah, we like this better. This is the answer to that. Disgusting. Oh, and here's a story about Canada. Maybe you were
Yeah.
Crossing the wires
yeah,
there.
so shortly into the future. Canada, they had some institutions that bought, you know what, they probably listened to Matt Damon and Snoop Dogg, and they should not
As you
have.
do.
Canada's biggest pension fund has ended its crypto investment pursuit, according to sources.
That means they probably sold at a massive loss.
Or they're still holding. They're just not buying more.
Enjoy your retirement, Canadians.
Those are
No one's getting
unrealized
retirement.
losses. They need to get through this fiscal year before they turn those into realized
To
losses.
hand those over to the next administration. Oh, here, you enjoy these.
I got to wonder if all of Matt Damon's friends give him a hard time about the crypto thing constantly.
No, I'd say most of Matt Damon's friends only ever say things they think he wants to hear.
Or they're all caught up in crypto scams too. So they're like, oh man.
Joy.
Or they need him to bail them out
Yeah.
from their crypto holes, so they're saying anything they think he wants to hear. Have I mentioned, Matt, that Good Will Hunting was a masterpiece? Today, I just want to say it every day. Here's an astonishingly obvious headline from CNN.
Chinese police are using cell phone data to track down protesters. And all I can think about was the MIT Technology Review article last week, which was, the Chinese people, this is crazy. Why are you worried about this? And then here's a CNN article that's like, well, let me explain what's going on. It's like,
American
ooh.
police do this.
Yeah.
Canadian police, like everybody does this.
Seems obvious.
But the Chinese, as usual, take it a little bit further. They're calling people. And they're like, hey, were you at this protest? And the people are like, of course I would never go to a protest. Why was your phone there? You know, and that. And there was one woman who was smart enough to put hers into airplane mode, and she confirmed she's not been contacted at all.
Oh.
And Edward Snowden, boy, a lot of the stuff that he said is seeming pretty prophetic, isn't it? So
Yeah.
all the major news and government have to attack him for being a Russian asset.
Yeah, the Associated Press headline is Snowden receives a Russian passport and takes a citizenship oath. He's probably going to get shipped off to the front lines, you know, in all honesty.
Nah, he's too important for that.
Apparently he's married with 2 kids now.
Yeah, he met some woman after all that happened.
That's probably
Didn't
not
know
a spy.
She might work for the KGB.
Yeah. I mean, that's how things, so at least that's so we've been told.
There's a North Korea hired some guy to come in and help them with like nuclear or farms or something. And he actually defected and it was like, yeah, I want to live in North Korea. And he met a woman who she was like totally in love with him and they got together. They had kids. He found out years later, they made her do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's grim for both sides. That's just sad.
So, you know, I mean, if you want to be a citizenship, you have to take an oath. You do that here in the United States too.
There were a couple of quotes from our government. It was like, well, he's obviously a Russian asset and always has been. I don't think that's why he's doing that.
No. Doesn't really have any other options.
Although if he was a Russian asset all along, wow, that was 4D chess, right?
Yeah.
What an amazing,
Seems unlikely.
what an amazing play that would have been.
But
I
perhaps
love it
not.
as like a fanfic theory though.
Yeah. Somebody's gonna write it's gonna be like the Tom Clancy novel, and it's just like you don't
What
see
a
it coming
twist.
at the beginning, and it's just
That'd be more of an M. Night Shyamalan. Well, Pwn to Own is happening, and as usual, a lot of the big names in tech are being embarrassed.
Samsung Galaxy S22 hacked once again on second day of Pwn to Own.
Second day, third hack. So at this point, the reward was down to 25 grand because it was like, guys, you can't keep coming back to the S22 lake. Go hack something else.
This article, I don't think mentions it, but Samsung also lost their signing key for their internal apps. So malware is being distributed that will affect Samsung devices. Oh, yeah.
Situational awareness, 0.
Samsung's Android signing key has leaked and is being used to sign malware. Yeah, that's it. That's an excellent sort. Woo. Why isn't it in that story? That doesn't make any sense.
They one of the quotes in that, I'm paraphrasing, where they're like, we lost that a long time ago. So that's nothing new.
But they didn't invalidate it. Like, it still works on your phone. You had all this time to invalidate this and make your phone. Why did you do that?
Now, usually we have stories about Russian malware attacking us. Today, we're turning the tides. Now, this is probably our government, right?
Probably.
probably.
Almost certainly.
New CryWiper data wiper targets Russian courts and mayor's offices. Now, this thing presents like ransomware. It acts like ransomware. It has ransomware messages, but it actually just deletes everything.
Ooh.
Except for executable files, because it wants the system to keep running as it does its thing. And botnets have to be updated from time to time. You might need a new command and control server. You might need new targets. You want to take a few minutes and look over your updates before you commit them. It's always important.
Syntax errors are the doom of us all, including botnet authors. A command typo might have dismantled most of an advanced malware's network. Oops.
It was a space between, it was host and then IP address. They removed the space between host and IP address.
Ooh.
It's going to cost them some money, but it's good for us.
It would be interesting if that was actually a one of those operations where we have to take this down, but we can't make it apparent that we have access to take it down. So we're going to make it look like an incompetent developer.
That'd be a smart move. Oh, it'd make it easy to restore it, wouldn't it?
Well,
I guess if you already had control of it.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about Apple's new encryption in the cloud and all that business. They've actually announced 3 new things.
Apple advances user security with powerful new data protections.
So you got your messaging end to end, you got your cloud end to end, and what was the other one?
I don't remember. There's headlines in here.
The other one was not that big a deal. Security keys. Oh yeah, I guess it was the security keys for iCloud.
I wonder if the federal government is going to step up antitrust investigation of Apple now to use that as a bargaining chip to try to make this go away.
Or did Apple do this in order to create a bargaining chip to make antitrust go away?
Ooh.
They have stepped back on some other things. Now, we talked a lot about this one, and a lot of people were upset about this because this is overwhelming privacy violation. They have said they have a better way to do it now.
Apple kills its plan to scan your photos for CSAM. Here's what's next. Something a bit worse.
What's next is you can put your phone into a mode where it basically is like on the phone looking for this. So if you have your phone in CSAM protection mode and you snap a nude, that phone is going to be like, no. We're in CSAM protection mode. There cannot be any nudes, and it'll alert whoever you want it to alert that a nude has appeared on this phone. Also, iMessage, like if you're in that mode, it's scanning all of your messaging to look for grooming. So opt-in CSAM protection, I guess, is better than cloud scanning. You got a kid who you're giving a phone to, it might not be a bad idea. Kids are dumb.
They're cyber deviants.
Well, they're on the way to being cyber deviants.
Right.
We have to come up with a word for like junior cyber deviants.
Maybe that's what you put. You're a junior.
Aspiring
Intern.
deviant. And when it comes to buying data online, it's all out there for sale. But who do you trust?
Scammers are scamming other scammers out of millions of dollars. On cybercrime forums, users' complaints about being duped may accidentally expose their real identities.
Once in a while, we'll get a story about somebody who says, hey, I bought this meth and it was fake. And they go to the cops over that. That's always a bad idea.
Yay, Craigslist. It was one of those green texts, like, I tried to buy meth on Craigslist kind of thing. And then you get to the end and it's Rick Astley. Because you can't stop reading because it's just so insane.
There's a word for that kind of joke. Is it anticlimactic or anti-joke?
Anti-humor?
Yeah,
Anti-joke.
Yeah, it was very unsatisfying by the end, but then it's like, wow, I wasted like 5 minutes reading
Reading it. I'm committed now.
Norm Macdonald on Conan O'Brien telling the moth joke is the pinnacle of that. Go watch that on YouTube. It's fantastic. Rip Norm Macdonald. And we've got some NFT crypto nonsense. Guess what? They were tracking your IP address.
Consensus to update MetaMask crypto wallet in response to privacy backlash. We just wanted to track your address. That's all. What's the big deal?
Why are you so upset?
Should we not have done that?
Wasn't the whole idea of decentralized and anonymous part of your whole existence, bro?
We won't tell nobody. Honest. It's fine. It's fine.
I was trying to think, like, what would you do with this data? Or this thing had to be tracking more than they claim, right? Because just who sits at a desk? Who would buy that?
I wonder if this is for, like the grad students, like the stipend or something, because they're supposed to be doing stuff and research and they're never there.
Spying on your work time.
Your productivity.
That makes a little bit more sense. Although I don't think you get assigned to a desk here.
Grad students analyze, hack, and remove under-desk surveillance devices designed to track them. These are just motion sensors under a desk. The university said, we were just using that for occupancy. How many desks do we actually need for our grad students? Because they're never there.
Couldn't someone just do a head count instead of, this seems like over-engineering.
The great thing about these sensors is the way that they work is based on crotch warmth. Because that's one of the warmest parts of your body. So it can detect whether or not a warm crotch is present in the seat.
And they're mounted under the desk. Oh.
It'd be a great way. If you have a low sperm count, you can actually get this thing that refrigerates your junk. And that's supposed to increase your sperm count. You could use that as a countermeasure.
Could you just sit on an ice pack the whole time?
Well,
A bag of peas.
It's not as convenient. You can't hide it with your pants as easily. Condensation is going to get you.
You're going to look like you pissed yourself on your way out of your grad class.
And the Florida IRS, but didn't the IRS do this a couple of years back?
This is not the first story.
Shouldn't this be, and then like IRS onboarding, there should be some like recent examples of issues to look out for.
Florida state tax website bug exposed filers' data. So if this, follows suit, remember what happened and what was it in Missouri when the governor's like, we're going to go after those hackers, look out for something like that in Florida.
Iterative IDs that are in the URL. So all you got to do is change the URL number and you can iterate through everybody's tax filing.
And it wasn't set up well enough to know if anybody actually did that.
Wow.
These are the people who have the most power in our government and guns. They have guns.
Segue.
But we're not allowed to have guns. I know technically we're allowed to have guns, but oh boy, are they doing everything they can to get around that.
UPS and FedEx gun purchase tracking policies draw privacy concerns.
So FedEx and UPS both insist that you use a different account and a different monies and, FedEx UPS online account for guns, a different one for gun parts, and then a third one for all purchases other than guns and gun parts from a gun store.
Like bubble gum.
Yeah, whatever. Ammo, t-shirts. And of course, they are treating those differently. They say it's for security purposes, but the question is, can the feds go look at that database? Because we know that the feds or the shipping companies share info with the feds about drugs that get shipped. So they already have infrastructure.
It seems like those are business records, which don't even require a warrant.
I also saw some screenshots, and I don't know if these are true or not, but from gun stores where they had the credit card terminal, and it says the card or the company has declined transactions for this type of business. So we also now have a transaction code for credit cards for guns, which is treated differently now.
We get that sometimes with KVM purchasers. Like most government cards won't let the government buy KVMs because it's not the correct business category.
And here's a follow-up for a security story we did a while back, and this is from the horse's mouth.
Hertz announces settlement agreements related to past legal claims. That seems a little obtuse. What's actually happening here?
Well, it already happened. What happened was Hertz employees may have lost some of the cars. Like somebody brought the car, turned it back in, and then something happened to it. They couldn't find it. So what they did was they called the cops. And they said, hey, we never got this car back. Even though they had got the car back. And people had done online check-in, which is a thing that they have. And those people were arrested.
No one bothered to check a receipt or...
They're the ones that called them in the first place. Like the Hertz is the one that turned them in. Like this car was never returned, and they'd go to arrest them. People are like, no, I returned that car. Like, yeah, tell it to the judge, buddy. Well, eventually they did.
I'm thinking, I know this isn't the case, but you would think that the police would be like, maybe we should verify this before we go arrest someone.
See, the problem is police are always going to accept the business's version of the story.
Right.
That's like the Walmart self-checkout people getting burned on that. Like, they just trust Walmart. Like, we have a relationship with Walmart. We believe them. If they say you shoplifted, you shoplifted.
You have Grand Theft Auto, which has some more scrutiny under the law, which is perhaps not a bad thing.
Anyway,
yeah, Hertz messed up.
And they're going to have to pay some people who got arrested and possibly jailed for these offenses.
Fun times.
Yeah, it's a nice time to get a Hertz payout, right? I hope they have to adjust for inflation.
Yeah. Plus 40%.
This just reminds me, like, anytime you rent something, there's a reason you, like, take photos and record every aspect of that transaction.
Yeah.
Like, when I moved out of our old apartment, before we moved into our house, I took photos of everything. I only recently got rid of those photos, even though we've been moved out of there for 2 years.
Anytime I rent a car from Hertz, what I like to do is I like to video myself taking a dump in the truck.
I know.
Yeah, right before I drop it off. And if they accuse me of not dropping it off, I'll be like, bro, there's DNA evidence.
I was here and I dropped it off.
Yeah, there was one time I rented a car that had a ding on like one of the panels, and we were doing the initial walkthrough, and I was like, "Is that ding on the thing?" And they're like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Okay," and I took a picture of it with my phone with the guy standing there, like just sort of surreptitiously, and then when I checked it in, they're like, "That ding wasn't there," and it's like,
oh man, that is like top 5 feelings in the world.
Yeah.
When you pull that out to a rental office,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, actually,
But
this thing you're trying to charge me for.
But then you got to worry you've pissed them off.
Yeah,
And they're going
exactly.
to red tape you and
Yeah.
get you for something else.
Yeah, that was constantly checking my credit card for 3 months to be like, did they charge me anyway? Did they charge me anyway? What's going on?
When I got rid of my cable service and went to fiber, you had to go through that whole thing, turn the equipment back in. I knew that might be a thing.
Yeah.
And a couple of months later, 2 guys showed up at my door, and I thought that's what it was about, and I was just ready to shoot them. But it turns out it was just like the retention team. They're so desperate, they were going door to door.
Wow. They hired and like paid people to do that.
2 guys.
Well, it's horrifying that 2 guys are desperate enough for a job to do that, but also that they would have the money to do that because OMG.
Yeah, I told them, I was like, I said some things I can't say here. And they were like, oh, we haven't heard that. But they were dead inside.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, whatever. And they just write it down on their list and
That's
they'll
weird.
give it to corporate.
No one has ever complained about a cable company. That's so weird.
Our online rating is a 1,
Yeah.
but we've never heard any of these complaints before. All right, that was 52 minutes.
Oh,
Lengthy.
You're welcome.
we will see you guys on Wednesday. Bye.